Hi, my name is Robert. Welcome to the all-new Sketch Magazine podcast, where we talk about creating comic books. If you enjoy this podcast, please hit subscribe. And if you want to be notified about new episodes, please hit the bell. We appreciate it. Thank you. Hey, welcome to the Sketch Magazine podcast. I'm here, Robert W. Hickey, with Chris Dreier. Hey, Chris.
Hello, how you doing today?
Fine. How you doing?
Pretty good.
Good. In the past, we've talked about which came first, characters or stories, and then we talked about creating the look of your book a little bit. And I know as we're creating this, we'll go back and forth on many different topics. You and I always ramble off and get going in different directions. But I thought today we would one thing that you sort of got to be thinking about as you're writing, as you're creating characters, as you're just working on the book is, where's it going to go? Is it going to be a comic book? Is it going to be a comic strip? Because that sort of affects your storytelling. Mm-hmm. It sort of affects the layouts of the drawings and how you tell it. It's different, of course, by creating pages that flow to creating panels that may, like on webtoons, just run up and down and you scroll through the story. So that's something you need to think about. And the reason you want to think about that is it all comes around to building a fan base.
Right.
So that you continue to do this, so you continue to create stories and share them. So comics or comic strips.
Right. The other thing that just occurred to me that you also probably should be thinking of is this story going to have an ending? Or is this a universe of characters that just constantly goes on?
That's sort of what we have.
Yeah, but maybe someone's got, there are some people. I know I did a couple graphic novels that had a beginning and a middle and an end.
Yes, you did.
And then I had no plans to do another one, and I did another one, and then that one had a beginning, a middle, and an end, and I haven't done anything since. So, I mean, like we had talked last week, I think you had mentioned that, I'm the same way. I don't, like if I were to write a novel, it would always be like under 100 pages.
Really?
Because I just want to get things done and the characters are developing as we go.
Yes.
So, I forgot what I was going to say. Can we edit this out and then start over?
No.
Hi, Bob. This is Chris. How you doing?
Hey, no, this is the fun part of this.
Oh my god!
You're getting the unedited us. It's sort of like the novels Camelot Forever for me. There's an end. I would like to do 6 novels. Right now, I've got 1 published. I've got 1 that I'm tweaking the end and playing with, and should be out this summer. Where I want to take it, I figure it's going to take 4 more novels to tell the whole story. And then to me, I'm done. Is there more stories in there? Yes, there's other groups of characters that could be ran with or something done with. I'm not too sure. I'll be up for it, but I'm not saying I'm not going to be up for it. You just never know. But this main core story is an end. My comic book stuff now, I don't see an end to it.
Yeah.
The end will be when I'm done. And done means done. I'm not creating anything anymore. So there's always stories to tell. And those stories create more stories. And the more you do this, you're like, oh, but we can do this. We can do that. I can remember I was thinking about Paradox Wars #2, which we all know has been delayed because artists and all this stuff. And writing it, and there was a group of characters in it that I'm like, oh, this would be so cool to do this with them. And I started making all these side notes. And next thing I know, there's like this little limited mini series coming off this. And I'm like, I gotta get this main book done. Had a major squirrel moment with all these notes and stuff that could happen. And it's like, okay, wait a minute, rein it in, keep the side notes because you might pull from them, but reining in and get the main thing done. So that was that's the hardest thing for me, but I never see a true end to it.
Freaks and Gods, I designed that universe to go as long as I do it. I mean, it ends when I end, like you said. If my
Right.
son wants to continue it, he may have to be careful. I may haunt him from the grave, depending on how he handles it.
Be careful.
I
Uh,
know. But
Clay and I actually are talking about co-writing some short stories this year on it's called Lords of the Labyrinth, and he has taken that concept. It was a concept for a card game back in the day, and he took a small little thing, created his own land, and he actually runs a D&D group that's active in that land. And it was like nothing to do what I wanted to do with this. So I'm like, okay, we had a 5-hour trip, and him and I were coming back from Gatlinburg, Tennessee, and we had 5 hours. He had to go to school next day, so him and I just busted and left the family and just busted home, and they came back the next day, and we discussed this story from beginning to end and have a breakdown of the whole thing that we want to tell. And we know there's a lot of little stories to get that person to that point. And it's all focused on one person, but that was fun. I throw ideas at him and he goes, what if we did this, and he's gotten real creative. He's been playing D&D for years now, and he's actually the DM. He's the dungeon master. So he spends a couple of days of his week writing, and he's gotten real creative. He even had to throw a character in his last adventure, and he came up and was pulling it out of my head. He goes, Dad, what would Rob do if he was thrown in this situation? And I'm like, I'd do this, da-da-da. And he'd go play it that way, So it was like sort of me playing D&D and not having to do it.
Well, my son Connor never showed any interest to me that he was interested in doing any creative stuff like that. I guess he always appeared to me to be a little bit more like his mom. And then one day I was in his room because at the time there was a storage closet and it had all my comic books in it. It was a very small townhouse, and then he had an open notebook on his desk, and they were like manga character drawings, and I'm like, oh my! And I started to get like a little tear. My son's drawing,
right?
But you know what? We went way off. Comics or comic strips.
Right? Hey, that's part of the randomness here.
I know.
But we all draw it back around. We're saying there's never an end.
Right. Yeah. Right. Well, okay, there isn't, but you can do a limited story where it really means to end.
Yes.
That not needs to, but means to. Like you really want it to end.
Right.
But as far as comic book and comic strip, I have always leaned towards comic books. I know I'm thinking about maybe creating a comic. Actually, not creating one. I've got like several ideas I wanted to do as books, but I thought maybe I could use one of them as a comic strip because I think the more places you've got your characters out there, and the better chances you are of having some success. That also depends on what your level of success in your mind is.
Right. It depends on what you're reaching for.
Right. But the thing about comic strips is having not really spent any time in that world, I really can't say a whole lot. But looking at it as a comic book artist, writer, I think that like issue 1 of Freaks and Gods could have probably ran for 6 months.
Yes, I agree.
As a daily strip. And that's a different kind of writing that I would have to rethink about how you do that, because
when we were writing Clay's Way, we did it one strip a week, and it ran for 70 something strips is what we created. So was that a year and a half? Yeah, it's about a year and a half.
Right. Yeah.
And it was really weird writing one punchline after another, because that's sort of way you got to sort of give them a punchline, and then you got to give them something. Ours was more humorous. It's about a child who is ADHD and blah blah blah. Dyslexic. So we played on that, but then you have those adventure ones that basically gives you a page a week or page a day or whatever they're doing. Right. But you've got to you got to hook them still per page and move them on.
Right.
The most successful ones are going to hook you.
I've been
So,
reading for the last 6 months to a year, off and on. I've been reading, some of those. Um, Prince Valiant is still there, still around,
yes,
still got new stuff, and it's only on Sundays. Same thing with Flash Gordon.
right.
The Phantom is Monday through Saturday, new content. Sunday is a different artist and writer, new content. So Sundays are the
Really?
same story, continuing story. Monday through Saturday is a continuing story, and that's panel by.
Yeah.
I mean, that's like 3-4 panels every single day. And when you read them, like sometimes I forget like a few days. I go back and I reread. It's I don't know. Sometimes some of them are like they every new set of panels they're reminding you of what you just read, but
Right.
that's because you're supposed to be reading it every day,
Right.
once a day.
Every day in a paper.
Right,
Read them
right.
online.
Yeah, yeah. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of different places you can
Which
find them.
which is a whole different experience
Right, right,
than if it was a paper that you tossed and the next day they'd
right.
remind you
Yeah.
and move you forward a little bit.
I mean,
Boom, boom, boom.
it's just in case they're listening or watching this video. The Phantom actually did not remind me every single day.
Really?
No, they were. It just sometimes it would continue, and
Mhm.
and then sometimes it would remind you what you just read the day before.
Okay.
Yeah, but okay, but again, we're getting off. I feel like getting off
No, no,
track.
no. But what we're talking about here affects on one how you write your story.
That is true. Yeah.
Are you going to write it in a 24-page, 32-page comic? Are you going to have to write each page as a hook and it's going to be published online?
Yep.
I think if I was starting now, and I might even this podcast sort of got me pumped on comics again. Sorry, it only took 3 episodes of it to get me motivated.
Actually, only 2. We're recording our 3rd one right now.
True. I'm still going to be doing the video games and other things, but it's if I was starting fresh and with the market where it is, I would do online publishing because you've got to create a fan base. You've got to create people. The number one thing, no matter what you do or where you head out, is a fan base. I spent about a year studying independent musicians. Now I joined some groups and stuff. I'm not a musician at all, but it was amazing. There was a lady out there who ran a group for musicians, and it was all about building that 1,000 supporters. That 1,000 supporters that would pick up any song you put out. That 100 supporters that would definitely buy anything that you put out, like T-shirts and all that. It was all about building that fan base. I mean, this girl does Celtic music, and she's never done a concert, but she has a huge fan base out there that she can play upon and deliver the content to, and they will support her. And if you're doing this not as a token comic, as something that you just want to do and get done, if you're doing this as a possible living, if you're doing it as a second business, as a side thing, then you want it to be successful. And I know both of us have busted our asses on stuff that never really got any traction.
Right.
There's been many times when I've gone to shows and I haven't sold one comic. I sell a lot of art supplies and stuff, but not one single comic, And I would feature a whole feature set up there, but zero audience,
Right.
So I think if I follow through with this, we'll see. I will reach out to like a Webtoons because I think that works better than trying to do it on my own site. You got the guys who like Penny Arcade, you got PvP, Evil Incorporated. You got these guys who years ago built their own online strips at their own website, so they sort of controlled. And you had to go there each day or once a week, however they publish, and read their stuff. I think people wants to go to a Webtoons type thing now, is what I'm getting. Right. They want the convenience of the convenience of Webtoons is that it scrolls, so it's easy on your phone.
Right.
That was the big push for it. Most of these people are getting their content on their phones. They're getting these YouTube videos on their phones.
Right.
So the big push towards the digital stuff a few years ago was you make it where it's easy scroll, easy to read. The webtoons really came in and fit that area. I used to read a lot of online comics. I don't right now, just because right now with my work schedule, it's 60 hours.
Yeah. Oh.
And that's enough. Gotta have a little downtime. Yeah. So, but I will, as we're doing this podcast, as we're moving forward, I will reach back out and look at what some of these guys are doing now. I know Penny Arcade's still out there, real active, still got a huge fan base. They still do the PAX conventions. I know PvP still out there. So I'll check around and see what a nice balance of whether you go to like a Webtoons type site or if you go to your own. Going to your own is like, it's hard to set up your own store. I have my own store at skystormuniverse.com. I might get a single order a month. Woo!
Yeah.
That's not paying server fees,
No. Yeah. And if you're not paying for your own site, which means it's literally your comic books name.com, .net, whatever, then you're going through somebody else, which means your name, it would be like hosting.something / your comic book. It's not going to be, that might be even, I don't know. Isn't that harder to find then?
Yes, but most people are going to find you because you put a link out there nowadays. You put a link to it on social media. You put a link to it on some post or a hashtag that's going to draw them to you. So yeah, it's still in person. To me, it's important to own my own domain because I don't want somebody else coming in and sniping it out from under me. I've had that done. I've had that done before. So yeah, that's sort of important. But it's almost like sports analogy, going over to a court by yourself playing basketball with nobody around you is cool. Playing in a gym filled with people already there might notice you and take an interest in your play.
Right.
So when you go to a Webtoons or you go to somebody like that, they've got an audience coming in there for other strips that might see your artwork or your header or your plug or your ad or however you're going to promote it. And you might pick up an audience from there. You have a better chance picking up an audience from there than you do, say, just doing, I do stormquest.com, put out and nothing, because I have to work so hard, working the social medias, trying to build an email list, trying to do all this to get a few watchers.
Right.
So
it's hard though. It's hard.
It is hard. It is very hard. There's nothing easy about this market. So right now, what we've been talking about is you're going to create characters. You're going to write stories. You're going to figure out what kind of format it's going to be in. And I hate to tell you, we still haven't talked about production or lettering or coloring, or you brought up that we never mentioned contracts.
Yeah, I read people. Yes. Yeah.
So
contracts can be like something that if I'm like most artists or the other way around, business side doesn't come naturally to us.
No, it don't.
And the contract's like, no, I just want to do it. I want to do the book. I want to do it. You got to have something. Okay, again, I am not a lawyer, so
there you go.
Google it yourself.
Yes.
Sure. But I think you and we've worked together. I've signed contracts that you've created. They're a page.
Yes.
And they're very simple.
Yes.
Who owns what? What are you doing? And when do I get it? And how much am I paying you, or vice versa?
Yes. And when you get the property back, if it's something you create.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah. Which
yes.
You said that on purpose.
Yes.
I made a mistake once with that. You were very angry with me about that.
Well, I also have signed contracts like with Caliber.
Yeah.
and a tied up property that they didn't even do anything with, but yet it was still 5 years before I got them back to be able to do anything with.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Right.
that was rough. That was rough.
Yeah. But
So,
yeah, that's if you're signing a deal with a small publisher. I guess I was talking like if you're a writer and you're hiring an artist or a team, or you're one of the people being hired.
yes.
You know,
Yes, you should have a contract with an artist before you send him money for pages that he's going to do.
Right.
And then they disappear. And
Yeah.
so you're out with no
Yeah.
way to hold them
accountable.
Yeah, but really, how much more are you going to spend to hold them accountable? I have spent a lot, and it doesn't work.
Right. Personally, I do not and have not accepted anything up front when I'm going to do a job.
Right.
Because that holds me accountable.
Yes. Well,
for me, because I know my personality and
because you have ethics too.
I can get distracted by a shiny object for days, miss deadlines. But if I don't get all of it at the end when I'm finished,
right.
I mean, that's just how I am. I mean, sometimes, you got to look into yourself and realize, if I get half up front, I might just sit around for a while because that's just how I am.
Right.
So I need that motivator. So I have never accepted half up or 10% down. I just don't do it that way.
Right. Right.
That's me.
Right. Well, I've paid several times. We won't go into it much, but I have paid and gotten burnt.
Yes.
And either of the times, well, actually, it's been 3 times now. They were nice little chunks of money. So.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But you move forward.
Right.
And try not to do it again. Don't take sob stories from people.
Yeah. One sob story, I have, and it worked out for me. So I got lucky. I was working with an artist. Something bad happened. We waited. I did a little extra up front for them, and then they delivered. So I rolled that dice, and it came up for me that time.
That's good. It's very good. I'll be honest. I don't think most time it does, though. So
no, I think I might be
receive
exception.
Your product and then pay.
Right.
I mean, there's different ways to do it, though. You can also say, "I'll pay you so much," and you show me roughs and layouts, and then you get the remainder upon doing finishes. Because artists have been screwed too. They do a lot of work and then never get paid.
Right.
So
endless revisions. If you're an artist, make sure you've got some kind of thing in there for how many revisions if necessary.
Yes.
Because you don't want to be revising something, for months and doing almost the page again and not being paid for it.
Right.
But so just be careful.
Yes.
Check with a real lawyer or Google.
Get
a good base.
Google lawyer. There you go.
Google lawyer.
All right. That's contracts.
That's boring adult stuff.
We wanted that to be part of last week's podcast, so we want to slide that in there. But I think one of the reasons we brought up whether you're going to do comics or comic strips is because it's going to be it's going to be part of your process of writing,
right?
Because you're going to write totally different than you would write if I got 24 pages to tell the story. I can start out here, introduce people here, have some big thing go on in the middle and try to wrap up and then put some type of cliffhanger at the end.
Right.
All right. If you're doing the day-to-day stuff, you almost got to do that within a single page or a handful of panels or something, you don't get to do that with 24 pages. Yeah.
Right.
So it's just something we want to bring it up at this point in time because I think we'll come back and we'll talk about distributors. We'll come back and take each. And, right now, there's 3 distributors for comics if it's in print, Diamond, Lunar, and Penguin. It's a great place for distributing. We'll give a Kablam and Indie Planet a shout out for print on demand and for digital. There's drive-through. I've had books I have books sitting through drive-through. Right. And then Comixology is currently in this weird movement of being absorbed by Amazon. So that's definitely something we'll watch and come back. I just got some type of notice that some of my reporting for Comixology is disappearing the 1st of March. You're not going to be able to get these records of sales or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And you got to go hook up your KDP, and KDP is your Kindle publishing with Amazon, and start all new, basically.
Nice.
So,
okay.
yeah.
Great.
So, yeah, that's sort of a real weird thing.
Didn't Amazon buy?
They've owned them for a couple years.
But now
we've been expecting this.
Right. Okay.
Yes. They want everything with Amazon.
Yeah.
They don't want Comixology. They want Amazon.
Because it used to be Comixology in Amazon company.
Yeah.
That's how it used to be for a while.
It used to be Comixology, period, before
and
Amazon.
Then they got bought, and then it was
the three guys got bought
Amazon,
out.
And now they're just going to absorb it like the board.
And they're going. And I'll be honest. Last year I got to know the KDP background and the tools and everything they've got back there to publish digital.
Yeah.
Because we did it with the novels, and I have no problems moving the comics to there. I just don't know what kind of audience is going to follow it that want to buy, but I think they're going to offer print on demand.
They do.
They're going to offer, because you've done that, and they're going to offer digital release.
Yep.
So I mean, why not?
I've got Danger Tours Volume 1 and 2 on Amazon right now, not on Comixology, because for a long time it always seemed like Comixology was hard to get into.
Mm-hmm.
Amazon, you just had to prove you were who you were, and you upload the book. If it passes all the criteria, boom, it's up.
Yep.
So Danger Tours are up there, and then that Kickstarter I did a year and a half ago, Tales of the Dark Tunnel, which is like a side story from Freaks and Gods.
Yes.
If you look for it, please do. It's a great book.
Yes, it is.
I love it. You don't have to know anything about Freaks and Gods to read this book and enjoy it. It's like just the same universe, but I always said thank you. It's like I've always said, like, if it was you walked into a comic book store in the 80s and you wanted to buy Spider-Man, but you also think the X-Men look good, but they're both from the same company, you're like, well, you don't really have to read either one to enjoy the other one. So
Sure.
Kind of how that was. But I have it up there, and I also have it on Indie Planet for print on demand.
No, I haven't used Indie Planet or Kablam yet, so
oddly, I think I made about the same amount of sales on both places.
Really?
Yeah, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty cool.
Right.
So
right.
And what's also cool is that with Indie Planet, I know you weren't going to talk about it, but you got my.
No, that's all right. Share it.
They have an option where if you can make your book available to comic book stores. So if they buy a certain number of copies at a certain price, they get a bigger discount, so they can put it in their store. And I had at least one store do that with Tales of the Dark Tunnel, so I was pretty happy about that. Yeah.
Cool.
I hope they enjoyed it.
Right.
Yeah.
Now I wonder if they go through and select like a whole bunch of books to get that discount. Like they go through and we're going to support this series, have them all printed. I'll have to ask them and see how that exactly works.
It goes by book, because you can buy, because it said when I was uploading it as an option was, do you want this available for that discount? Mm-hmm. You as the publisher, creator of that book, you get a smaller percentage of it because but I think it kind of to me it pans out, because if you're getting 3 or 4 stores buying 5 copies a piece, that's potentially 15 to 20 more books out there that people might buy and then seek out other stuff you've done.
That's called building that fan base.
Hey, I guess I have.
Yes, you have.
Right.
Well, I mean, if you go through Diamond or somebody, you're going to take a lot less per book.
Right.
So, there's always going to be that. But, I guess, and like I said, we'll come back and really discuss digital as far as that kind of content and distributors. So I guess what we're really reaching on, we feel like we're at the beginning of making a comic here. Right. You've got to really be thinking, you got to put that hat on that says comic book, which we really all grew up with comic books. But yet this younger generation grew up with a lot of this webtoons and stuff, the web comics, the PVPs, the penny arcades. So, I mean, there's some really good web comics and stuff out there. It's got some large followings.
Right.
So, whatever you think works best for you. I know the web comics, you don't really make anything posting, I don't think, but you make it all for creating. You create collections of whatever you make, which is nice.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing about and why I'm really looking at the web comics is that it pushes you to create something, whether you post just 1 a week, 2 a week, 5 a week, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
You're constantly to meet that deadline, so you're always working on it. It's not like, well, I can ink those pages next week or
Right.
week after next. No, get it done so you can get it posted, so you can get a reaction, so you can get more fans watching it, more people looking at it.
You're absolutely right. It's amazing if you're doing something for yourself and you're showing it to like a couple of friends. It's so different if you have it up somewhere and you've posted something and you look at your views and you've got like 5 people who read it, and you're like, wow, I got 5 people who I don't know.
Right.
Who read it. So then, okay, well, I got to do it. It's amazing how just 5 people who want to see more can really push you to keep working on it, because sometimes you work in your own little echo chamber of your art studio.
I think we always do. Yes.
Yes. Yeah, you're right. You're right. It does. I know I'm just repeating it, but it does keep pushing you to make that new thing. And I know that in the very first episode of this, I had talked about someone I ran into at a convention who was working on like 15 or something times rewriting the first issue.
Right.
No, you could be on issue 15.
Exactly.
And then imagine how far your book would come. I mean, that's important.
So, yeah, I mean, I don't know, I'm getting a little antsy here. I think we're going to have to do some publishing online, play around with it, and then we can share it and go to it and discuss the do's and don'ts,
Yeah, I still am batting around a comic strip because I've got an idea for a character who I can come up with, and I know this is a terrible way to put it, I can come up with maybe 2 issues worth of story for her right off the top of my head, maybe.
Okay.
I think, well, if I did a comic strip, I wouldn't be so pressed for time.
Exactly.
To get more because I can make that story and enjoy the process. And then as I'm working on that, another story might pop in my head, that's how that works.
Right. It does. Yeah, I agree. So comic strip, I don't know if there's really a correct answer. It's got to be what you personally want. At the end of the day, if you're going to put the effort and time into it, what do you want? And I don't think there's any one correct answer. You could start off making comics and decide to modify it into strips. Or you can start off with strips and go, I'm not getting anywhere. I just want to make comics. Go through, rearrange those pages, the artwork, and start making comic book pages. So you're not pigeonholed and you have to do it. Don't ever think you're pigeonholed and happen to do the one thing, because you can go in either direction.
You could also split the difference and do 1 page a week. If you're doing 1 page a week, you've got a comic page and a comic strip.
Right.
And then whatever direction you want to go from there. I know that the penciler I work with for Freaks and Gods, it would be very hard to take a Freaks and Gods page and split it up into a couple of panels, or because he's got stuff crossing, he's got diamond-shaped panels and circles.
Right.
And sometimes I dial it in, but I just love how kinetic it is. So you got to think of that too when you start.
Yes, that's it. Because a lot of these web strips don't want just finished comic book pages. Right. They want you to tell a story using their format. Working down and what works best on, like we said, most people are looking at tablets or phones with these things. Right. So it's a vertical.
On Webtoons, you can also add a little added bonus. You can add actions that'll play audio files.
Really?
So if you scroll up and you hit that page with a big explosion, it could be, what I mean?
Cool.
You scroll down and the phone rings. Yeah, I was looking at a couple. Who's that guy? I forgot the one I was looking at where I saw that. He did a few years ago. His book was through Alterna Press when they were doing they still are doing the newsprint. By the way, they're also supposed to be doing a distributor at some point too.
Oh, really? Okay.
Alterna, right? But what was that guy's book's name? I can't remember the name of the book. It's kind of like a Scooby Doo kind of ripoff, not ripoff, but inspired kind of 70s.
Okay.
And I was reading one of his old, OK Psycho or Psycho OK or something like that. If you see this, I apologize. But it was a fun book, and I was scrolling through it, kind of reading it, and all of a sudden a sound effect happened, and I was like, what the heck? It's pretty awesome. So yeah,
that is pretty cool.
Check that out too. But
Okay,
that's
yeah,
like a little bonus. I mean, if you're making a comic, okay, you know what? I'm glad I went that way. If you're making a comic as a resume to make a movie, dot. I don't know how to say it nicely, but work on your movie and work on your comic book.
I don't know.
You know what I mean?
I've been to San Diego three or four times set up, something like that. And I have seen at San Diego people who make a comic book just to pitch a movie.
Right.
Yeah, they have the banners, they have the comic,
Mm-hmm.
and the whole reason of doing it was to, I guess, brand the name and everything, but try to land a movie. And I'm like,
right.
No. I mean, I have trouble handing control over to other people, as I've said in previous podcasts.
Yeah.
I blew up a whole station in my comic just to rewrite something. But I've always said, I was like, somebody asked me the other day if it came off forever, would I make a movie? Well, first of all, I wouldn't make a movie, and Netflix doesn't have enough money to make a movie because I wouldn't sell it to them.
Right.
So it would be Amazon if they ever decided. So yeah, I could see a movie being made on this thing, or a TV series or show, but I would really want to get it into a certain audience. I think where it would be successful. Netflix definitely ones and dones, and Amazon seems to want to carry on the whole series and do more. So,
right.
I don't know.
But
so yeah, Netflix doesn't have enough money because
I don't know. Part of me is like, hell yeah, I'll sell out for all that money. Then the other part of me is like, but I want Atom to look like Atom.
Exactly.
My series would be so expensive. I don't think anyone could ever. You have to be animated.
It would have to. Well, they've done. Amazon's got Vox Machina out, which was a Kickstarter that Clay, my son, supported, and then that's pretty cool animation. Yeah. It's adult, but it's pretty cool animation.
But I'm just saying, you would have 3
animation
actors.
Would be better for you.
Live action would be hard because you would have to have Steve Steph actors. They'd have to act the same thing, and then they'd have to edit them back and forth.
Yeah,
I can really see. But then I've also just put it off to the side and just.
Yeah, I really could see it more of an animation type thing,
right? A cartoon, as they say.
A cartoon, or a you could do it like a 3D thing, like a video game. Where you use more 3D models and stuff. That would be cool.
Animation is still a cartoon, I guess. In my mind.
It is. But anyway.
Oh, that went way off the rails.
We always go off the rails. That's why they're here. They're like, oh gosh, Bob and Chris, they're going to go off the rails. Let's see where they go here.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah, I think at the beginning stages, you sort of need this, and I keep coming back to this. You sort of need to try to figure out where you're going, but you're not pigeonholed. You're not set in stone. You can change this as you go. You're creating artwork and be manipulated, resized, repackaged, replayed until you're ready to publish. Then you have to worry about some of that.
All right. So I just had a thought on what you said, because it has been something that I've been thinking, which is one of the reasons why I haven't really gone forward with any comic strip. I am going back and forth because I feel like if I do the webtoon format, it limits me if I want to submit it to a more traditional. Do you know what I mean? Because the webtoons is more of a square type format.
It is.
And I don't want to have to spend hours redoing all the artwork either way. See, that's what I've run into. Why I have put that comic strip idea on the side for now.
Well, I think what you have to think about is how much effort do you want to do the convert it from webtoons to a collection or into a comic book page? Because you can definitely set things up 3 panels across. You can do a traditional 9-panel page, or you could come in, blow some stuff up ink wise. We both do Photoshop, so all your stuff would be in layers anyway. So you could tweak it, play with it. I mean, I've seen some of the guys, Brett Geiger from Evil Ink. He does the 3-panel or the 1-panel strip, and then he builds comics and graphic novels with those, and they're beautiful. He blows stuff up and does 3 panels, blow up big piece of artwork. He might even do something a little bit original within the book. So you could do like, I really want this to look like this. I need another piece of artwork to tell the story that would move this along. So it's almost like crafting another product, using pieces of this product over here to craft it. And then the fans aren't going to go, well, I already read all that on Webtoons. Yeah, you read it, but did you see how we put it all together? And now this is our masterpiece. This is the comic now, So, comics are sort of like, we were talking the other day with some people, and they're like tokens anymore, because you can't read them online, for $1, $2, whatever. You read them online, but to hold the physical book, to maybe get it signed or buy it in a Kickstarter and get it autographed, and now it's an autographed piece of, item that we have. So it's more of a collectible than it is the actual reading material, I guess, is what I'm getting at.
Right.
Sort of like you reading strips online, not through a newspaper anymore.
Right. Yeah.
A newspaper is sort of out. Thank goodness we can still read strips online like that.
Yeah. Yeah. True. Well, you give me something to think about, which is funny because that was what our job is to do for people who are
it's
who might be listening to us.
Yeah. So in this episode, Bob's thinking about getting back into comics, and Chris is thinking about doing a strip. There you go. And by the way, comics or comic strips? Well, we haven't even decided yet.
Do you know what comics or comic strips to me is the exact same answer as character first or story first? It depends.
True. It depends on your creativeness and what. Right. Yeah, because we both. I have done it both ways. It's been the story or it's been the characters. Usually it's the story. Actually, I have. But usually it starts off with a character, tell a story, and then you create all these other characters to support that story. Right. To keep things going, move in other directions and stuff. So, So, we'll have to go in depth on more about if you go with comic strips, how you can format and create cool pages. That might be something we'll have to come back to at some point in time. I have to make a note. Make a note of that. Come back and how to form it.
Because I get a lot of pages from the Pencilina Freaks and Gods, and I actually do some Photoshop. Well, actually, I don't even do the Photoshop work. It's in Clip Studio Paint. I just move stuff around and get it. Sometimes it's exactly how it needs to be, and sometimes I just need to. Those are going to be interesting conversations.
You did your Patreon page with your Kickstarter, right?
Yes,
You showed a lot of that kind of stuff, which was awesome.
I had a Patreon page for about a year, and I feel like I may have put the cart in front of the horse on that one.
Okay.
Get a Patreon page when you have people who are reading your book. Don't expect people to read your book because you have a Patreon page. Didn't have the fans before I had, Right. But what I did was I was my content on there was I was kind of doing a journal of me working on on all the pages from panels to panels, just
and you would show how you manipulated some of the art to change it to tell the story. Right. So some
of the shortcuts and stuff I do in the software, the brushes I would use to make my book look as much traditional inked as possible because I started off as a traditional inker, which again is going to be another great.
We're going to talk about that.
Yeah. Those I should be able to say yay or nay, not I don't know, like I have been the last 3 videos. But I'm thinking about taking all those Patreon posts and putting them into a book. I just don't know how to package that. You and I will have to talk about that.
Okay, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Okay, but they were great. I really, they were instructive. Cool. They were well done, and I really like the way you discuss different things. So we have to get back to creating some brushes too. People like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I make tons of brushes. I make brushes constantly.
We gave away a few of them on Sketch Magazine site or with Shopfire.
Right. Yeah.
And
cool.
They got some downloads. People like
awesome.
them. And the video's got a bunch of views too. So,
That's right. I made videos for that.
Yes, you did. Yes, you did. They're actually here at the Nostalgic Network.
They are.
This was the Shopfire site. Yes.
Oh, that's right.
For this
I'm gonna
channel.
Have to go back and watch it. Maybe I can learn something.
So, hey.
Remind myself of what I may have forgotten.
What you did. Yeah. Okay, so again, that's not a real answer here, but I do think it's important for you to think about this at the beginning process. You know, you can get so distracted on, I'm this character and he's going to do this and that, or she's going to have this ability, or blah blah blah, and then that builds a story, or the story's coming in. Okay, at the end of the day, if you're indie publishing this, you're doing this to yourself, where are you going to take it? Now, if you're reaching out to a publisher, whole different story.
Oh, yeah.
Whole different story. But if you're going to do this yourself, right now is the time to go. Comic strips. No, I just want to do comic books because I need to be flexible in my time. Because one thing about comic strips, the only way you build a fan base is if you say you're going to be there once a week, be there once a week. If you're going to be there twice a week, be there twice a week. They're expecting, they're going to give you their 5 minutes or whatever it takes to read it. They're expecting you to be there.
Right.
You know?
Yep.
And totally different subject, but just as important as collect emails because you want to let those fan base know that you published.
Right.
So, you know, you want to remind them, hey, we just published, boom. So, but we'll get back to that. Collecting, building fans, collecting email addresses, It's still the one big marketing thing you can do. All the big time marketers and everything is email addresses. It's still it, no matter what you do. All the funnels, all that. So, comic strips, I don't think there's a proper answer, but I do think you need to really consider it at this point of the game.
I just have fun.
Okay.
I think that when you're going to create comics, I think a good majority of those out there, of you who are going to do a comic book or a comic, I think that comic book or comic strip really never, for a majority of you, probably never pops in your head. You already kind of know. It's going to be a comic strip. It's going to be a comic book.
Right.
You know. But if you don't, like you were saying, Bob, it's like it doesn't matter. It just, you know, wherever you want to go with it.
Yeah, I don't think it pigeonholes you.
Stay consistent. If you're gonna do it online and you're gonna, you know, like you said, stay consistent. Make sure you pick a schedule that you know you can meet. That has been my problem. I've wanted to do things, and I always would step back and realize, gee, I might want to do this sort of schedule, and I just don't think I can. So then I don't do it.
Right. And the biggest thing I also think, after thinking about this, is the financial commitment. A lot of time, the webcomic guys, they do everything. They write it, they draw it, they ink it, they color it, produce it. You know, if you're investing money, like with Clay's Way, I had an artist come in who did the pencils each week and got paid for doing that. You're investing money with no money back if you're posting on a free site like a Webtoons, and nothing's free, but it's not costing you to post. So it's the financial commitment. But I feel like it's probably the same as if you were paying somebody to do pages or something like that than just doing strips. You're going to pay them less for each strip, but it's probably going to balance out the same cost as if it was a whole page. It's sort of like it's less money going out, but it's more money going out more often, maybe.
Yeah,
you know?
Right. Exactly.
So those are considerations you got to think. Your financial consideration, where you're going to take it, character or story, doesn't matter. Whatever you're comfortable in creating. The whole thing is keep creative, keep making, keep it moving forward.
Yes, I cannot add anything else to that. That is That's like well said, and I completely agree with that.
Then we'll end this one right there.
Exactly. Yeah,
All
there's
right.
nothing else to say because you're absolutely right. Consistency and
couple things. One,
yes.
The email, sketchmagazine@nostalgicnetwork.com. Please use it. If you got questions, you got something to add to this, send it to me. Chris and I will discuss it. And check us out next week. This will be live, and we'll be out with some more.
Cool. Awesome.
All right. Take care, Chris.
Yep, you too. Bye, everybody.
Bye.